What is up, people? Today I'll be doing a movie review on Joker 2. And of course, this is my spoiler warning, so whatever reason you have not seen this film yet, for whatever reason, then click off. But yeah, this is my spoiler warning. So as usual, I'm going to give you the breakdown. Initial thoughts, positives and negatives. For the positives, I'll be talking about how visually pleasing it looks, musical implementation, where it worked, Joker/Harley moments, and for negatives, there'll be many similarities, musical implementation where it failed, Joker ambience, and the ending. And from there, I'll end it with my ending thoughts. I'm just going to get straight to the point. This sequel was one that didn't need to happen at all. The first Joker had a much better depiction throughout various elements in ultimately portraying the message as being around mental health and how Arthur's mental state got worse and worse. So when comparing to Joker 2, there wasn't any kind of depiction or portrayal that led to an ultimate messaging, and it was simply a continuation type scenes based on past events done by Arthur, combined with musical elements throughout the film that ended up being a complete jumbled mess. So first I'll be talking about visually pleasing. Not much to say here, but the overall contrast was the same as the first film, and it was nice to look at, and being well shot. And can't lie, the musical set pieces also did look good. Just a good sharpening of the surrounding scenes and their coloring. Even in scenes that look kind of more dull in their coloring as well. So next will be musical implementation where it worked. Now I did come into this with an open mind in how they would implement it, and this particular element mostly took me out of the film, but there were two examples that I can remember in it working and the scenes that use musical components, and honestly it should have done more in this manner. I think it would have done a much better visual representation in serving the long sentence with the music instructor when he talked about in how music can make someone whole and balance such conflicting forces/factors within. And those examples being after Arthur felt good after talking to Lee in hearing her past awful events and then expressing that feeling inside as he sang out in front of his cellmates, and the other when Lee sets a fire and her/Arthur running out, having a laugh and dancing/running as music plays, expressing their craziness and affection. These examples, and done with some editing to the scenes in how they look, and combine that with adding transitions and as well visual imagery of the thoughts of the characters are having in their minds, could have made them cartoonish like how the film started. And to me, all this united would have shown a better visualization in showing their current state of mind/feeling from scene to scene instead of the visions played out in Arthur's mind. Just being more in the reality space and not so much in the mind. Next, I'll talk about Joker/Harley moments. It was nice in seeing them both on scene, in them exchanging their past events and having their relatableness with each other. The whole fire breakout scene that I mentioned in my last point, just expressing themselves, having the time of their lives as things are happening in the background, and them having to talk after a court scene as Arthur gives off his smoke to her. They were enjoyable scenes. And now moving on to the negatives, starting with many similarities. There were times in them using components from the first film, such as that one eerie song was used 3 to 4 times, going back to the infamous staircase, using the Frank Sinatra song That's Life twice. That felt random and unnecessary in one of its usage, and the one dance he did in the bathroom scene from the first one. I would even say as well the court scenes and them feeling similar and repetitive, as it was mainly used for his past events of killing and familiar faces talking about Arthur. In general, this should have done less scenes with the courtroom in that regard. So next, we'll talk about musical implementation where it failed. For most of the musical elements, it just didn't work for me. I understand they were meant to be based around the events happening in reality before transitioning into the mind, but I just didn't get these connections with some, and it just felt more as just different musical set piece performances. An example is after a court scene, then it switched to Lee/Arthur in musical set pieces of them singing/dancing, and even the song choice just felt like a disconnect. Another being after a talk with his lawyer bad-mouthing Lee, it goes to a set piece of them singing together, and again, the song choice just took me out. And not just that, it ruined certain scenes that were more subtle in their seriousness, such as the interview between Arthur and Patty, tension/arguing between the two, and then Arthur just sings out of nowhere, the one with Arthur singing as he is leaving a message to Lee on the phone, and even with Arthur and Lee on the staircase as she wasn't happy with him. It took me out of the film as these moments that played out were just an overall disconnection and it pushing away the seriousness factor. Next, I'll talk about Joker ambience. To keep this point short, there was the kind of ambience in the way Arthur acted at times, such as making gun fingers and shooting, smacking on the head of the judge with the gavel in his vision, his overall temperament, but I wouldn't say they topped the first one and they felt more toned down as well. And lastly, I'll talk about the ending. Honestly, I'm just kind of in the middle with this ending. In one case, I'm glad it happened, but at the same time, I don't care or got any kind of sense from it and just felt like whatever. And just to top it all off, they decided to sneak in the guy carving his face and I guess having ties with Heath Ledger's Joker, which just felt purely random. In the end, this entire representation and using it in a musical manner just didn't work for me. Whether it's the musical elements and taking away the serious factor in certain scenes, or the few enjoyable scenes between Arthur and Lee, this needed to remain a one and done film with the first Joker, and the sequel took big swings, resulting in it not needing to be a thing. As for the rating of this film, I'll be giving Joker 2 a 4 out of 10. Anyways, later.